I had just stepped out of a tense investor call, the kind where every sentence feels like a chess move and your heart doesn't stop racing even after you hang up. The Austin heat hit me like a wall, but my mind was still back in the boardroom, running numbers, replaying every word I'd said. I reached for my phone, expecting a message from my assistant confirming the next meeting, or maybe a text from Sophia reminding me to eat lunch for once, but it wasn't Sophia. It was my mom. Either give your brother a 50% share of your company and a house in Lakeway, or you're no longer part of this family. I stopped mid-step. My heels hit the pavement, but my brain didn't catch up. I read the message again, then again. And still it made no sense. There was no greeting, no build-up, just a sentence that felt like a knife wrapped in politeness. They didn't bother with anymore. I blinked at the screen waiting for a second text. Maybe a just kidding, or at least an explanation. Nothing came. A sick chill ran down my back. I sat down on a bench outside the building, my phone still in my hand like it might burn me. The buzzing of downtown traffic faded behind the roaring in my ears. I wasn't angry yet, I was just hollow. They didn't even ask, they demanded, as if my years of building this business from scratch years they never supported meant nothing. As if everything I had built was just a vault they had the key to. And now they were cashing in half of my company, a house for Leo. I couldn't even laugh. My breath caught in my chest. The betrayal wasn't new, but this was a new level, and under the shock, a cold clarity began to form. They didn't see me as a daughter, not anymore. They saw me as a resource, and I wasn't sure which part of that broke my heart more. I wasn't born into money or connections or belief when I told my dad I wanted to start my own company. He didn't even blink, just muttered, "That's not a real job, Elena. You need stability, not dreams." My mom didn't say a word, just gave me that tight-lipped smile. I knew too well the one that said, "You'll get over it soon enough," but I didn't. I worked late nights after my shift at the coffee shop. Fingers stiff from packing boxes and typing emails until my wrists ached. I pitched to empty rooms, got ghosted by clients who swore they'd circle back, and cried in my parked car, more times than I'll admit. I skipped holidays, missed weddings, and celebrated my first $100 order alone in a dim apartment with stale pizza and Leo. He was out blowing through credit cards my parents paid off without question. First it was parties, then motorcycles, then a failed startup that lasted 6 weeks and ended with my dad blaming the market. They called him spirited. They said he was finding himself. When he dropped out of school, they threw him a birthday trip to Miami. When I finally landed my first big client, I called home. My mom answered. I told her the news, breathless with excitement. She paused for a second, then said, "That's nice, sweetie. Is your brother still in town?" That was it. No congratulations, no pride, just a detour back to him. That's what it was always like. Leo was the headline, I was the footnote. They never saw the nights I went without sleep, or the way I built something from nothing with my bare hands and sheer will. They didn't see the late-night panic attacks or the meetings I walked into, wearing confidence like armor while I was falling apart inside. They saw success only after it became undeniable. But even then, it wasn't mine to them. It was a family asset, something to be redistributed, managed, handed over. I gave them my story, and they never even read it. So when that text came, telling me to hand over what I built to the sun, they never stopped handing everything too. I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was still shattered. The first time I noticed it, I was 8. Leo had just brought home a C on his math test. Dad ruffled his hair, laughing. "You're doing your best, buddy." That same week, I brought home an A- in science. Mom barely looked at it. "Why not an A?" she asked like I'd failed. It was always like that, different rules, different expectations. Leo crashed his bike into the neighbor's mailbox at 15, and they called it boys being boys. When I missed curfew by 10 minutes at 16, I was grounded for a week and forced to write a letter apologizing for disrespecting house rules. He got praise for effort. I got silence for excellence. In high school, I won a statewide debate competition. I still remember standing on that stage, clutching the plaque, trembling from adrenaline and pride. When I got home, I showed it to Mom. She glanced up from folding laundry and said, "That's nice, honey," then asked if I remembered to defrost the chicken. But when Leo got a summer internship, unpaid one, he only got through Dad's golf buddy. They threw him a dinner, invited cousins, toasted to his bright future. I learned early that being the daughter meant earning everything twice. Once through the work, and again through silence. I got used to clapping for myself. And maybe the hardest part wasn't the neglect. It was how normal it became. How I started measuring my worth through their indifference, thinking if I just achieve more, maybe they'll see me. They never did. When I graduated college a year early, I got a card. When Leo dropped out of his second program, they paid for a Europe trip so he could reset. I remember watching them at the airport, waving him off like he was heading off to save the world while I stood there invisible with a suitcase full of responsibility and no applause. So no, that text wasn't just a betrayal, it was a continuation. They weren't asking me to help Leo. They were asking me to keep playing a game I never agreed to. One where love was conditional and my value had an expiration date. 2 days after the text, I drove to my parents' house in Westlake. I didn't call ahead, I didn't warn them. I needed them to see my face, to hear the words I'd rehearsed in my head so many times they no longer trembled. The air was thick with that quiet, polished stillness their home always had, like nothing messy was ever allowed to exist there. I stepped inside without knocking. My heels echoed on the hardwood floors like a countdown. They were all in the living room, Dad reading the paper like he always did, glasses perched low on his nose, Mom scrolling on her phone with that distant calm she'd perfected, and Leo sprawled on the couch like a prince without a throne. No one looked surprised to see me. I didn't sit, I didn't smile, I just stood there steady. "This isn't love," I said. "It's control." Mom looked up first, eyebrows drawn. "Elena, don't be dramatic. We just want what's fair. The word cracked something in me. I laughed, not out of humor, but disbelief. Fair is helping someone build, not waiting until they've done the hard work, and then demanding half. Dad's voice sharpened. "Watch your tone. He's your brother, family shares." "No," I said, firm and quiet. "Family supports, encourages, believes you did. None of that. Not when I was working 2 jobs to keep the lights on. Not when I was eating ramen in a 1-bedroom apartment building, a dream you both dismissed." Leo scoffed. "Still making everything about you, huh?" I turned to him. "You've been handed everything your whole life and still think you're owed more." "I don't owe you anything," Mom's voice snapped. "If you walk away, don't bother coming back." There it was, the line in the sand, not a plea, a threat. I looked at each of them, really looked. At the people I had spent years trying to please, praying for some scrap of pride or acknowledgement. And all I saw were people who only saw value when it served them. "I'm not staying in a family that only loves me when I'm useful," I said. Then I turned, no shouting, no breakdown. Just a final, quiet exit. The door clicked behind me. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was running away. I felt like I was finally walking home to myself. That night, my apartment felt too quiet. No meetings, no phone calls. Just me and the dull hum of the AC, cutting through the stillness. I kicked off my heels and sat on the edge of the couch staring at nothing. I should have felt strong, empowered. I'd finally stood up for myself. I'd said the thing I'd needed to say for years, but all I felt was empty. I didn't cry. Not at first. I just sat there frozen in that strange echoing silence that follows when the last thread snaps. The weight didn't hit all at once. It sank slowly like water rising around your ankles before you realize you're drowning. They really meant it. The ultimatum, the erasure. The line drawn so cleanly, like I was just a number in a ledger, crossed out for refusing to pay up, and the part that hurt the most. I still wanted them to love me. After everything, the dismissal, the favoritism, the years of being invisible, I still wanted someone to call and say, "We're proud of you, that what I built mattered, that I mattered," but that call would never come. And for the first time, I let that truth settle in. No more hoping, no more trying to earn something they were never willing to give. I curled up on the couch, pulled a blanket over my shoulders like armor, and let the tears come, not angry, not loud. Just soft and slow, the way grief always is when you finally stop pretending it's something else. I had outgrown the need for their permission, but that didn't mean I didn't still carry the echo of the little girl who just wanted to be seen. Letting go of them wasn't the hardest part. Letting go of the version of me who waited at the window for their approval, that was. And somewhere between the silence and the sobs, I realized something. This wasn't a collapse. It was a release, because I wasn't breaking. I was finally done bending. The next morning, I woke up with a kind of clarity I hadn't felt in years. Not the fake kind that comes after a motivational video or a good cry, but the real kind. The kind that sits in your chest like steel. I didn't feel rage. I felt purpose. I made one call, Daniel. I said when my lawyer picked up, "We need to reinforce everything." He didn't ask why. Just said, "Tell me what you need." By noon, we were already in motion. Every document I had ever signed, every clause, every fallback plan. I wanted it all airtight. I transferred my business assets into a newly formed trust, one where I was the sole beneficiary and executor. We restructured ownership shares so that no one could access anything without my explicit approval. I updated my will, my power of attorney, my succession plan, and then I removed every family member from every legal fallback role. No more just-in-case clauses. No more soft spots. My empire wasn't just protected, it was impenetrable. For years, I'd left windows cracked open out of guilt. Just in case they came around, just in case they softened, I finally sealed them shut. Not with anger, but with finality. And once everything was filed, signed, and notarized, I sat at my desk and pulled out a single sheet of paper. No emotion, no begging, just truth, Mom. Dad, you made your choice clear. You chose to protect a son who never worked for anything over a daughter who built everything without you. You gave me an ultimatum. Here's my response. I won't hand over what I built. I won't reward entitlement. And I won't remain in a family that treats love like a transaction. This isn't revenge. It's a boundary. Effective immediately, I'm stepping away. No contact, no drama, just silence. Take care, Elena. I folded the letter neatly, slid it into a plain envelope. No handwritten note, no dramatic signature, just a clean goodbye. At the post office, I dropped it in the box without flinching. The sound it made soft final echoed in my ears. Longer than it should have. I didn't wait for a reply. I didn't need one, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of their silence. I welcomed. 3 days after I mailed the letter, the storm hit. It started with Leo. Of course it did. He posted a long, winding rant on Facebook, the kind that pretends to be heartfelt, but reeks of performance. It opened with, "Sometimes family forgets who was there for them when they had nothing," and ended with, "Family should be about giving, not just taking." The irony was staggering. Leo had never been there for anyone but himself. I didn't respond. I didn't even open the comments, but a mutual friend screenshotted it and sent it to me with one line. He's spiraling. Then came the calls. 4 in an hour. All from Mom. I didn't answer. She left voicemails instead. The first was syrupy sweet. "Elena, honey, let's talk about this. You're being emotional. We can figure something out." The second cracked around the edges. "This is breaking your father's heart. You think this is mature. Acting like a child." By the third, she was angry. "You're being cold. Selfish, your brother is hurting, and all you care about is money." And by the fourth, she was done pretending. "If you walk away from this family, don't expect to come back. We won't be here waiting." I played them once, then deleted them all. After that came the messages from the extended family, the cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly filled with concern. Paragraphs upon paragraphs about how families fight, how I'd regret this one day, how you only get one mother. The same chorus, "Forgive, forget." Fall back in line. But I stayed quiet, and in that silence, something surprising happened. I felt free. The space where their voices used to live, crowded and loud, and full of expectations, was empty now. And instead of echoing guilt, it echoed peace. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. Not for the years I endured, not for the success I earned, and definitely not for finally choosing myself. They had made noise I chose, quiet. And for the first time, the quiet didn't scare me, it healed me. One morning, I stepped outside my office with a coffee in hand. The sun was just rising over downtown Austin, casting the soft gold over the skyline. I stood there barefoot, wearing an oversized tee and no makeup, breathing in the stillness. My assistant Maya came out to check on me. "Hold on," I said. "Can you take a photo?" She blinked. "Right now. Yeah, just this." She smiled and snapped it. No filters, no angles. Just me standing on the balcony. Soft smile, the wind in my hair. I posted it with a simple caption. "Peace looks good on me, no context, no hashtags, no drama." And somehow people got it. The likes rolled in, but it was the comments that surprised me. Old classmates, former coworkers, even strangers. "Wow, this hit deep. You don't look peaceful, you look powerful." This kind of healing earned the support felt strange at first. I wasn't used to being seen like that, without performance, without pretense. The internet, usually a cruel space, was kinder to me in that moment than my family had ever been. Leo deleted his Facebook post within hours. And then Mom texted, "So this is what you've become." A public embarrassment. I stared at the message for a long time, then I left it on read. Because yes, this is what I've become. A woman who no longer begs for space. A daughter who stopped performing for applause. A person who finally understood that peace isn't passive, it's earned. And as the group chats lit up and the whispers circled, I just kept working, kept walking, kept living. No clapbacks, no guilt, just the silence. They never saw it coming. Because the most terrifying thing to people who thrive on control is when you stop responding altogether. I wasn't hiding. I was healing. And peace. Peace didn't just look good on me, it finally fit. Time passed, the messages slowed, the noise faded. Even the family group chat, the one that once buzzed with passive-aggressive updates and holiday plans, I was never truly included in, went silent. And for the first time, the quiet didn't feel like punishment, it felt like freedom. I started saying yes to things I used to push aside. I booked a solo trip to Italy, wandered through sunlit alleys in Florence, ate pistachio gelato on a park bench, and didn't once feel the need to prove I was happy. I bought a little cabin in Vermont for the fall, nothing fancy, just peace wrapped in leaves and silence. I laughed out loud at old rom-coms in hotel rooms. I danced barefoot in my kitchen with no one watching. I stopped waiting for a text from people who never saw me and started answering to the only voice that mattered, my own. But the most healing part, mentoring, it started small. One coffee meeting with a college grad who reminded me too much of myself. Tired eyes, big dreams, no roadmap. I listened, she cried, and something inside me cracked open, not with pain, but with purpose. Word spread, more women came, not to be rescued, just to be reminded. You can start from nothing, I told them I did. And every time I said it, I believed it a little more. They didn't need a savior. They needed someone to say, "You're not crazy for wanting more." So I gave them what I never had time, truth and permission to take up space. It didn't erase the past, it transformed it. All those years I spent trying to earn my family's love, they didn't go to waste. They became fuel lessons. Warnings fire turned into light. I no longer introduced myself with the weight of where I came from. I led with where I was going, and it wasn't away from something anymore. It was towards something new. Something I built without needing to be seen, because peace wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of the life I chose. I was sitting on a whitewashed balcony in Santorini, a glass of wine in hand, watching the sun melt into the sea. The sky was painted in pastels, peach lavender gold, and the breeze carried just a hint of salt and jasmine. It was quiet. Not the kind of silence that follows conflict, but the kind that feels earned sacred. I thought about everything I had walked away from, the ultimatums, the guilt, the years I spent measuring my worth by people who only loved me when I made their lives easier. And then I thought about everything I'd built since, not just the business. I didn't just protect my company when I said no. I protected my soul. I drew a line in the sand and refused to erase it, even when they threw words like selfish and ungrateful across it. But this wasn't about revenge. I didn't want payback. I didn't need a scene. I just needed space. And in that space, I found peace, I found purpose. I found a version of myself I'd never had the courage to fully be until I was forced to choose. And yes, it hurt, but it healed too. So here I am. No bitterness, no regret, just distance. And in that distance, I finally see things clearly. They tried to make me choose between them and my worth. I chose me, and I didn't lose a family. I found myself,